En juillet 2016, le Secrétaire général des Nations Unies a lancé le Partenariat mondial pour mettre fin aux violences faites aux enfants. L'objectif du Partenariat mondial, c'est de concentrer les efforts et les énergies pour l'atteinte de l'objectif durable 16.2, centré sur la lutte contre les violences, toute forme de violence faite aux enfants. Ce partenariat mondial a organisé le 14 juin dernier un événement mondial qui regroupe tous les membres, qui regroupe toutes les organisations qui sont intéressées et qui actent sur les violences faites aux enfants. Le Premier ministre de la Guinée était l'un des rares invités du continent africain et ça dénote aussi des actes forts qui sont posés par le gouvernement de la transition pour mettre fin aux violences faites aux enfants. Ceci est une continuation des efforts ici en Guinée qui ont abouti, comme vous le savez récemment, à l'adoption du Code de l'enfant, qui ont abouti à certaines stratégies pour mettre fin au mariage des enfants, aux mutilations génitales féminines, aux violences corporelles, aux châtiments corporels faits aux enfants à la maison, à l'école, dans les communautés. Malgré ces progrès, il y a encore des défis en Guinée. Nous sommes tous au courant de la montée des viols contre les enfants. Nous sommes tous au courant des taux très élevés de mariage d'enfants. Ici en Guinée, presque la moitié des femmes mariées sont mariées avant l'âge de 15 ans. Nous savons aussi qu'ici en Guinée, nous assistons à un taux extrêmement élevé de mutilation génitale féminine. Je voudrais donc vous encourager tout le monde à regarder ces interventions des leaders mondiaux, dont le Premier ministre de la Guinée, sur les efforts déployés pour mettre fin une fois pour toutes aux violences contre les enfants.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends, 6 years ago, the Secretary-General joined global leaders and youth advocates to launch the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children. Today, it is the only global entity focused solely on SDG 16.2, ending the scourge of violence against children. And thanks to the partnership, we have much to celebrate. Legislative reform has been enacted around the world, providing more children with comprehensive legal protection from corporal punishment and online abuse. Dozens of countries have developed national plans to bring evidence-based prevention interventions to scale. And millions more children experiencing violence are being reached by services to prevent recurrence and support healing and justice. But our work is far from complete. Over this same period, we have experienced several setbacks. Children and women have been at heightened risk of violence and abuse during the COVID-19 pandemic. And new armed conflicts around the world remind us that those who pay the greatest cost for these conflicts are the most vulnerable, children. More than 1.5 million children have fled Ukraine since the beginning of the war, and they are at heightened risk of human trafficking and exploitation. My friends, we must do better. Doing better means first and foremost placing children's rights and well-being front and center of the 2030 Agenda. Only by breaking the intergenerational cycle of violence and deprivation can we achieve sustainable development. Second, doing better means recognizing that tackling violence against children is a necessary precondition to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Violence in childhood negatively impacts virtually all other goals, from health and education to poverty and gender equality. And third, doing better means that the level of political and financial commitment to this issue actually matches the scale of the violence that is faced by children. Every year, violence impacts every second child in the world, and we need to step up our collective efforts and investments accordingly. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, violence against children is not inevitable. As this partnership has shown, time and time again, we can make progress. let's continue working together to end violence against children, for countries, and for our world.
I am very glad to reaffirm UNICEF's commitment to end violence against children. This work could not be more important or more timely. Every child has the right to be safe, nurtured, and cared for at all times, in all situations. Everyone with you today and so many others have fought to help children realize that right. The End Violence movement has demanded public attention and driven public action towards achievement of SDG 16.2, ending all forms of violence against children. But we have seen that progress threatened by the COVID-19 pandemic. Lockdowns have put children in unavoidable proximity with abusers. Loss of income and the emotional strain of economic hardship have increased rates of domestic violence, especially against women and girls. School closures have deprived children of safe spaces and the support of teachers. Budget cuts have also disrupted and weakened child protection services. We need to get back on track, and we know what we have to do. We need to keep up the pressure to integrate child protection measures in all COVID-19 prevention and response plans. We also need to keep pushing for investments in parenting. As few as 5 home visits from a trained nurse or community worker to teach parents about the importance of attachment, play, and positive discipline is proven to reduce harm and improve safety. Parenting support should be universally available. As schools reopen, teachers, social workers, and staff need training to recognize signs of violence and abuse. And all school systems should be able to provide psychosocial support to help children overcome trauma. Especially in humanitarian emergencies and other crisis situations, we need to increase social protection that can ease financial burdens that heighten the risk of harm for children. And we need to keep making our voices heard and making space for children and young people at the table. Their lived experiences and their courage are helping dispel shame, deepen understanding, and drive solutions. Violence against children happens in every community, in every country, and it will take every one of us to end it for every child.
Monsieur le directeur exécutif du Partenariat mondial de lutte contre les violences à l'encontre des enfants, Mesdames et Messieurs les représentants des pays membres du Partenariat mondial, Mesdames et Messieurs, je voudrais à l'entame de mes propos vous adresser les salutations des enfants de Guinée qui participent avec moi à cette communication depuis le sud du pays. Je vous adresse également les vifs remerciements et les félicitations de son Excellence Monsieur le Président de la Transition, Président du CNRD, le colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, au Partenariat mondial, pour avoir donné une orientation stratégique à travers le monde sur la lutte contre les violences faites aux enfants. Je me réjouis de la participation de mon pays à cette importante rencontre virtuelle qui traduit toute l'importance dévolue aux avancées significatives qu'a connues la Guinée ces dernières années en matière de promotion et de protection de l'enfance en général, mais surtout sur la problématique récurrente des violences à l'encontre des enfants dans les familles, dans les institutions et les espaces ouverts. Mesdames et Messieurs, la Guinée fait partie des 27 premiers pays à adhérer au Partenariat mondial. En 2019, la loi portant code de l'enfant guinéen, qui interdit strictement les châtiments corporels dans les dispositions des articles 767 et 772, a été révisée. Cette révision a engendré des évolutions majeures dans les domaines de la promotion de l'abandon du mariage d'enfants, la protection judiciaire des enfants, le renforcement des dispositifs communautaires et des services. Il me plaît aussi de signaler que notre pays a engagé des actions qui ont débouché sur les résultats suivants. L'élaboration d'une feuille de route nationale, la signature par moi-même, chef du gouvernement, d'un document autour des 5 engagements solennels sous la forme d'aspiration nationale pour donner une orientation aux services compétents afin de faire de la lutte contre les violences faites aux enfants une priorité. La vulgarisation du document d'engagement du gouvernement sur les violences faites aux enfants et au niveau national et dans les régions et préfectures du pays. La réalisation d'une enquête sur les déterminants des violences dans différents milieux. Les 10 engagements portent essentiellement sur l'application des dispositions du Code de l'enfant relatives aux violences physiques, notamment l'interdiction des châtiments corporels en famille, dans les communautés et à l'école. La réduction du taux de mariage d'enfants de 20% d'ici 2025, l'application du cadre légal relatif aux mutilations génitales féminines, l'accroissement des investissements en faveur des enfants dans les secteurs sociaux prioritaires, le renforcement de la protection des enfants dans l'utilisation de l'Internet, des plateformes, réseaux, produits et services numériques. Monsieur le directeur exécutif du Partenariat mondial pour l'enfance, Mesdames et Messieurs, le gouvernement de transition que j'ai l'honneur de diriger fait de la problématique des violences faites aux enfants une des questions centrales de la lettre de mission que j'ai adressée à Madame la ministre en charge de l'enfance dès sa prise de fonction. Ainsi, conformément à ces orientations et dans la perspective d'offrir un environnement sûr et protecteur aux personnes vulnérables, notamment les enfants, les directives claires s'articulant sur 4 dimensions ont été données à ce département. Il s'agit de l'amélioration de l'offre de services à travers le système de protection de l'enfant en assurant la prise en charge holistique des enfants ayant des besoins spécifiques d'accompagnement. La mise en œuvre des actions donnant effet aux aspirations contenues dans la lettre d'engagement que j'ai moi-même signée pour le compte du gouvernement guinéen. La réalisation des actions d'évaluation et de recherche sur les violences à l'encontre des enfants. La vulgarisation des textes juridiques, notamment la loi portant code de l'enfant. Mesdames et messieurs, je puis vous assurer de mon engagement personnel et celui de mon gouvernement, sous la clairvoyance et l'impulsion de son Excellence Monsieur le Président de la Transition, à œuvrer dans une dynamique sans relâche en vue de mettre fin aux violences faites aux enfants. Je voudrais pour terminer mes propos renouveler mes remerciements au Partenariat mondial et l'UNICEF pour leurs efforts d'appui aux institutions nationales en charge de l'enfance. Vive les enfants du monde, vive la coopération, je vous remercie.
Bonjour, this is Patrick. You may know me as an ex-footballer player, captain. Manchester United, Juventus, the French national team, Monaco, Marseille, etc., etc. Or, at Mr. I love this game, where I spread that positive energy and the philosophy of life on my social media. What you may not know is at the age of 13, I've been sexually abused by my aid teacher. I've been only recently able to open to the world about this trauma when I released my autobiography last year. As is often the case, the perpetrator was someone who gained both mine and my family trust. Perfect plan was living inside the school, so no more traveling, no more wake up at 5 in the morning. When it came to bedtime, that's when the nightmare began. The person who trusted became my abuser. Every night, the night will start really nicely. He will cook food, let me play video game. Soon, I was in my bed. That's when he will come in my room and trying everything to put my pants down. And I put back. I even remember tied my shoes laces on my pants, my short, to make sure he didn't succeed. Unfortunately, he did. Then I back home, I told my mother, I don't want to stay anymore in that place. She asked me why, and I never answered to it. Thanks to the woman of my life, Margot, who I trust, I was finally able to talk about my sexual abuse because I feel safe. Due to my African upbringing, even talking about love is a taboo subject. So what's happening to myself was even harder to talk about. And then I play football in a high level. And we all know in sports, the toxic masculinity is something so common. Children have the right to feel protected and respected. But billions of children do not. Instead, they live day and night with fear. There is a silence and stigma and shame who only help who those perpetrate the violence. Abuse against children have been accepted for so many years. But let's be clear, this is not acceptable. We need to educate society to protect girls and boys, to support them with service are funded and focus on the needs of the survivor. The shame that survivors feel, it's so heavy to carry. And on my recent trip to West Africa, I was able to meet some survivors who were struggling with their unfair burden. During my visit, I was really moved listening to those children survive about unbelievable abuse. But also, I was really hopeful when I participated to that class teaching young boys about consent, a really important word. And those little girls speak up against dangerous cultural norm and practice. As a survivor and public figure, I realize how important it is to have those difficult and uncomfortable conversations that force us to dig deeper within ourselves. And I really seek and encourage other people to do the same, even if I know it's not easy. After football, I really want to be involved in amplifying all the good work has been done in the issue of violence against children in order to instigate a concrete change around the world. I would like to raise awareness and urge the government to protect those fundamental rights for children by supporting parents, schools, health sector. As an extremely positive person, it's important for me to shine a light not only on the problem, but also on the solution. I would like to lead by example. Together, we can change 1 billion futures.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, since the war in Ukraine started, 2 million children have sought shelter in the European Union. And I recently met 2 of them, 2 very brave teenage girls on the train to Paris on the 4th day of their journey from Odessa. I was so moved by their story, like so many others. Russia's cruel war of conquest made them leave everything behind. Their home, their friends, their fathers and mothers. But not their dreams. We are doing everything in our power in Europe to protect and care for these children, to give them a normal childhood and youth, and keep their dreams alive, along with those of all other children in the world. But we also know that those dreams have been shattered for so many victims of violence and abuse, or trafficking and sexual exploitation. This suffering is hidden away under the surface here in Europe and around the world. And unfortunately, this pain and heartache is often the result of sexual abuse. Children who are hurt and made to feel shame, blame, fear, and guilt. And this is not a thing of the past. It is an everyday reality. And the pandemic even threatened to throw us back years or decades in our fight against child sexual abuse. The numbers are telling. According to Internet Watch, there was a 64% spike last year in confirmed cases. And many more cases are never reported. This is a pandemic of neglect that must stop. And this is why the European Commission is taking action. We have just proposed new European legislation to prevent and combat child sexual abuse online. The legislation has 3 pillars: new mandatory rules, robust safeguards, and a strong enforcement capacity. First, we propose to make it an obligation for digital platforms to act fast, to detect, report, and remove illegal material. And those who do not do so would face serious penalties.
Second, we will protect fundamental rights with safeguards, because we cannot give platforms a backdoor to violate people's privacy. The tools used, for example, to crack down on online grooming, must be targeted and lawful. And third, a new EU Centre on Child Sexual Abuse will help step up enforcement. The independent centre will work closely with national law enforcement, Europol and support groups. Its mission, like yours, is to rescue and empower survivors and bring the perpetrators to justice. This new European legislation is one piece of our global commitment to protect human rights and the rights of the child. We are building a safer internet, and we are acting together to end violence against children in all its cruel forms. I want to thank the End Violent Partnership for its admirable work, because every child we protect and empower gives rise to hope. The 2 Ukrainian girls with whom I spoke told me that they dream to return home. They want to rebuild their beautiful country and break the cycle of violence. Their hope has not been killed, and it is shining bright for all of us. Thank you very much for your attention.
The fight against child sexual exploitation and abuse is one of the most important and pressing issues of our time. Confronting this threat is a major priority for the UK government, and particularly for me in my role as Minister for Safeguarding. And so I'm pleased to be able to offer some reflections at today's Leaders Summit. The End Violence Against Children Partnership does a huge amount of vitally important work across the world, and as its primary donor, the UK is a proud supporter of that work. Victims of these crimes are forced to endure unspeakable horrors, and the impact on them can be devastating and long-lasting. In my role, I have the great privilege of speaking directly with victims and survivors, hearing their testimonies and insights, and I am determined to ensure their experiences drive our efforts to tackle child sexual exploitation and abuse, prevent further offending, and ensure that perpetrators are brought to justice. The UK is proud to be a world leader in this effort, with our approach underpinned by the Tackling Child Sexual Abuse strategy, which was published last year. And together with a robust national response, we are an active participant when it comes to international cooperation and global standards. This is absolutely vital. These issues are too significant and too complex for any one country or one sector to address them in isolation. We've driven forward important work with 5 country partners and used our G7 presidency last year to stress the importance of collective action, as well as the work of the End Violence Partnership. But there is much more to do, and it's essential that we continue to seize every opportunity to mobilise further international action, such as the upcoming G7 meetings. We need to take a stand together and act right now to ensure that children all over the world are kept safe. And these efforts need to be supported by robust domestic regulatory measures in countries right around the world. The UK government's online safety bill will place tech companies under a statutory duty to keep users safe on their platforms. Companies will be held to account by an independent regulator. We must also continue championing strengthened collective global standards. These include calling on tech companies to play their part in keeping children safe online, including by implementing the global voluntary principles and reporting on progress in a transparent and accountable way. This is particularly vital as we witness the emergence of technologies such as end-to-end encryption. While we in the UK support strong encryption and protecting privacy, we are clear that companies must only introduce these features in a way that does not compromise on the safety of children. I cannot stress enough, there is no greater transgression of privacy than a child being subject to sexual abuse, and this abuse being circulated online for the gratification of offenders. We need to continue to support initiatives like the End Violence Partnership. And doing so means we are investing in work that makes a real difference across over 70 countries. This includes projects that have engaged over 900,000 children and 75,000 caregivers in digital education initiatives, and the establishment of new portals for reporting child sex abuse material in 32 countries, and incredible reach and engagement with other government and industry partners. It is therefore my pleasure to be able to announce that over the next 3 years, the UK Government's Home Office will contribute a further £16.5 million to the End Violence Partnership. As we strive to protect this generation and future generations of children from violence and abuse, the End Violence Partnership will continue playing a hugely important role. And that's clearly recognised by the UK's continued support, and I would encourage other countries and investors to do the same. Thank you.